Justin Trudeau's Liberals are closing weather monitoring stations in the north.
We need to continue to step up in meaningful ways, not just to fight climate change, but to incentivize businesses and our economy to create those solutions and implement those solutions that are going to slow down the pace of climate change.
The party behind the declaration of a national climate emergency in 2019, the same party that claims the Arctic is warming at a greater rate than the rest of Canada and the rest of the world, well, they've shuttered at least 4 manual and automatic atmospheric monitoring locations in Yukon, Northwest Territories, and Nunavut since 2012. This new data relating to the stark decline in the weather tracking facilities overseen by Environment and Climate Change Canada under the Liberals was first reported by Blacklock's on Monday after Blacklock's obtained an internal memo. In terms of manual observations, the Meteorological Service reached its peak in 1988 with 94 sites, said the memo. Today there are 57, it said. The decrease of manual observations over time is a worldwide phenomenon, said the March 27th memo, Meteorological Service of Canada. No reason was given for the closure of automated and manual stations. The memo said there was an urgent need for Canadian communities to adapt to this new reality of climate change. Average temperatures in Canada are rising at twice the worldwide average, with the North seeing increases of up to 3 times this global rate, said the memo. Indeed, extreme weather events experienced across Canada over the past several years have shown how climate change has already altered our reality and put the safety, security, and economic prosperity of Canadians at risk. Talk about altered reality. Now, in reality, under the Conservative government of Stephen Harper, whose effigy was once beaten, if you can call being whipped with sticks, lashed with sticks by a bunch of oversoyed vegans. Anyway, Harper's effigy was once beaten in the streets by environmental activists in Vancouver for being a climate criminal. However, the stations in Arctic regions under Harper numbered 73. Today there are 69 under the Liberals. The Blacklock's report notes in 2011, the aforementioned climate criminal Stephen Harper and his government approved a nearly $400 million upgrade to the 150-year-old National Meteorological Service to improve advanced warnings about severe weather through more robust monitoring. A real reason to monitor weather and have historical data gathered. In June 2019, the Liberal government, in a House of Commons motion spearheaded by then Environment Minister Catherine McKenna, declared climate change to be some sort of national emergency. The motion describes climate change as a, quote, real and urgent crisis driven by human activity, which impacts Canadians and thus, of course, requires government intervention like carbon taxes to curb. Now, the current Environment Minister, Stephen Guilbeault, in 2015, as the head of the environmentalist activist group Equiterre, claimed that climate change caused the mild winters and earlier springs that we have seen in recent years, has catastrophic impacts on the living conditions of the northern communities and several endangered Arctic species, such as polar bears. But without monitoring, how does Stephen Guilbeault now prove that assertion about warmer winters and earlier springs and all these polar bear deaths that are not happening?
That climate change has transformed the way we live. That climate action is at once urgent and an enormous economic opportunity. That's what we've been driving at, that the environment and the economy go hand in hand.
Or is this lack of data collection under the Liberals a hint that the data being collected does not support their hypotheses? Now, this is not the first time the Liberals have opted to memory hole data that suddenly became an inconvenient truth in their quest to blame fossil fuels for global warming.
The era of global warming has ended. The era of global boiling has arrived.
Just 2 months after that 2019 climate emergency declaration, Blacklock's again uncovered a deletion of roughly 100 years of statistical weather records by Environment and Climate Change Canada. The ministry told Blacklock's the removal of the records from 1850 to 1949, through the industrialization of society, was necessary because researchers concluded that there weren't enough weather stations to create a reliable data set for that 100-year period. Not enough weather stations, so they have to scrap data, is pretty bold reasoning from a government actively removing weather stations in the north. Or is the real issue the data itself? Vancouver had a higher record temperature in 1910 than in 2017. Toronto had a warmer summer in 1852 than in 2017. The highest temperature in Moncton in 2017 was 4 degrees cooler than it was in 1906. Brandon, Manitoba had 49 days where the average daily temperature was above 20 degrees in 1936, compared to only 16 in 2017, with a high temperature of 43.3 degrees Celsius that year, compared to 34.3 degrees Celsius in 2017. Perhaps the data gathered there was just a little too reliable to justify the Liberal agenda of carbon taxes and net zero everything. For Rebel News, I'm Sheila Gunn-Reid. Erasing 100 years of weather data and getting rid of weather stations, which would prove the Liberals to be liars about their constant claims of increasing temperatures in the Arctic. Well, it's all part of the Great Green Reset, wherein the Liberal government and the global elites want to control what you do, how you live, and how you travel through their onerous green energy policies. To sign the petition against the Green Reset, please go to nogreenreset.com.